Today's episode is a powerful conversation exploring profound success alongside significant personal challenges. Delving deep into mental health and sensitive topics like self-harm, you'll hear the journey of a remarkable individual whose experiences offer insights and hope, highlighting the strength it takes to rebuild and reclaim life from adversity. If you or someone you know is struggling with suicidal ideation or thoughts of self-harm, we've included links to helpful resources in the episode description. Being proactive is far better than the alternative. Before we dive in, with the increasing importance of supporting Canadian businesses, I'd like to acknowledge some outstanding Canadian companies who partner with Silvercore Outdoors. These businesses generously provide exclusive discounts to Silvercore Club members, including Armament Technology from Nova Scotia, Nanook Cases in Quebec, Marathon Watches in Ontario, Fortnite Optics in British Columbia, Bearwatch Systems, Frontiersman Gear, iHunter, International Barrels, Marks, Stuffers Supply Company, This Is Coffee, Veritax Solutions, and Splendid Bastard Beard Supply. Your support of these Canadian companies not only benefits you with exclusive discounts, but also strengthens local communities across the country. Now, without further ado, let's get on with this podcast. I'm joined today by someone who's lived a life of resilience and action. Raised in Zimbabwe, he's tackled anti-poaching, law enforcement, close protection, and private investigation. But beyond the high-stakes world he operates in, his true passion is mentoring others through adversity and helping victims of domestic abuse reclaim their strength through True Haven. Welcome to the Silvercore Podcast, Heath Jackson.
Thank you very much, Travis. Pleasure to be here.
I was intrigued. You've done one podcast before. You referenced that one to me. I did a little bit of background and checking on you and seeing what you're all about. You've led a pretty interesting life.
Yeah, if you leave out all the bad stuff, it's not bad.
Oh, we don't have any bad stuff in our lives. Come on. Yeah, you know what? That's one of the questions I would ask people. I would say, knowing what you know now, would you go back and change anything? Or what would you tell 20-year-old or 15-year-old you with all the experience you have? And time and again, everyone says, I wouldn't change a thing. Because it's all of those bad things that teach us those lessons that we need to know, that we need to learn. And if we'd shortcut those by any way, we wouldn't be who we are now.
Yeah, that's true.
So in my reaching out, I'm just going to read this little part. An individual who's a friend of mine, friend of yours, getting a little bit of background. His last part, he says, tells me about you and all the rest. He says, he's a good and solid CP operator as well as private investigator. He loves the outdoors and spends a lot of time in, quote, secret areas of the bush, swimming in pools and having outdoor barbecues. He's also a bit of an adrenaline junkie, but nothing too extreme that I know about. All in all, a good bugger, as we'd say in Zim.
That's right, yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, that had to be Darren.
You got it. That's Darren.
Yeah.
So you grew up in Zim?
I did.
You're born in the U.S.?
I was.
Okay. When did you move over to Zimbabwe?
So I don't know how far back you want me to go. My grandparents made their way over to what was then Rhodesia, now Zimbabwe, back in the early 40s as missionaries, and set up my grandfather. They went to a really remote part of the country. It was a long, tedious journey to get there, and he built a church and then a house, and they sort of set up there. They were inaccessible 6 months out of the year, and just there was no infrastructure there, no roads, no electricity, no sort of water supply, anything like that. So very, very remote. My dad was born there and raised there. He spoke Shona, the local language, the indigenous language, before he spoke English, and grew up on the backs of the African women in the village there. So he was deeply immersed in that culture.
And that your father, that's Bud, is it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, you have done a lot of background investigation.
A little bit. I like to know who I'm talking to. And
Yeah, Buddy or Bud. So my dad. So that's one side of the story. My mom's parents, for 3 or 4 generations, were in South Africa. Actually, one of her ancestors worked on Robben Island, where Nelson Mandela was incarcerated in the lighthouse.
Interesting.
And so she has a deep history there as well. And so they met and got married. My dad was involved in the security forces during the Rhodesian Bush War, which was a terrorist war. Went on for 20 odd years. Yeah. Started in around. Actually, I don't think it was as long as 20 years, but there were sort of rumblings that started way back, and then it came to a head. He was in the British South Africa Police, which were the Rhodesian security forces internally, and both of my uncles were as well. I can go into a little more detail on that. It's pretty interesting, but they once the war had sort of started to conclude, my parents went over to the States to attend Bible college, and that's when I was born. So I was born in South Carolina, and they finished their studies and moved back to Zimbabwe when I was 2.
What impact did the Rhodesian Bush Wars have on your father that you noticed growing up?
In terms of things like negative impacts like PTSD, that kind of thing, I never noticed anything. I noticed positive impacts that I assume had something to do with his experience during the Bush War. Those, things like being capable and competent in the bush, capable and competent with firearms, handling himself in tough situations. I assume a lot of that came from his experience in the security forces.
Isn't it interesting? And now I left that question open-ended, so it could be answered in either way, but isn't it interesting the perspective that we have when we look back on challenging times in our lives and the difference that it makes on just how we cope day to day? That little perspective, it's either a negative or a positive, or maybe it's not quite so black and white, but we can choose to look at it the positive.
Yeah. I think a lot of people tend to sort of highlight the negative impacts of being involved in conflict, especially when it comes to armed conflict situations in a military context or even policing. But I believe there are a lot of positives that come out of that are less obvious.
Yeah. Why do you think it is that people highlight it? Like, I've got my theories.
Yeah, because that's what impacts you the most. People tend to pick up on the negatives in their life, and tend to overlook the fact that, hey, when my vehicle broke down, I made a plan and got it running because I had experience with that. Or, when I encountered this difficult situation, I took a plan of action approach and didn't allow it to bog me down like it would someone who had no experience in adverse circumstances.
Right.
And that's because I was in the military. They tend not to think about that, I think.
Right. So growing up, you spent a lot of time in the bush yourself.
I did, yeah.
You're out hunting, fishing.
All my time in the bush.
All your time? Yeah. Tell me about it. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, my teacher, my mom was my teacher up until grade 7. My dad built a little schoolhouse on our property. So we actually left the home and went into the schoolhouse, and Mom would come in and teach us for the first half of the day. I had a pellet gun hidden behind the bookcase in the classroom, and when she would leave to go and do things, I'd be shooting things out the window, crows or whatever.
Sure.
And as soon as school was over, then it was party time. And I had little African friends, especially, that lived next door to me. His name was Tendai, and his little brother, my Pipi, believe it or not. And I'd go over and link up with them once I was done my school obligations, and we would take off barefoot in a pair of shorts with my .22 from about age 9 or 10. And we lived right on the edge of a little town. So our yard opened up onto just an expanse of bush. That was sort of no man's land. And we would take off sometimes overnight and go hunting and find our own food, pick our own food, make little shelters to hang out in or sleep over in. And yeah, that was my childhood, playing in rivers, chasing, catching wild animals to keep.
So that's why Darren says you still seek out secret places to go barbecue and swim.
I believe so. Yeah, I'm I'm not the biggest fan of most people, so I like finding the remote areas. I have some secret gems locally, kind of behind Mission that I go to.
Like where in Mission?
Yeah. Nice try. I could draw you a map, and swear you to secrecy.
There you go.
Or just take you and show you myself. But
That sounds good.
Yeah, I like the ones that are less frequented, less inhabited.
And so you say, not a big fan of people.
Yeah.
Is that because you're used to not having many people around, and there's a certain
I don't think
comfort
so.
to that?
I wouldn't say I'm an introvert. I'm not an extrovert either. I'm somewhere in the middle. I think part of that is culture. There are a lot of things about first world culture that bug me. The sense of entitlement and a lack of regard for other people, a lack of common decency. And, of course, that doesn't apply to everyone in the first world. But by and large, a lot of the sort of silly city dweller types that come out and try to find those spots that I enjoy so much tend to show up with a big boombox and their pit bull and their man purse and
I hate that.
and a bunch of weed and they like to make their presence very well known, and it sort of detracts from the whole purpose of getting away from things and out into nature when you have that around you.
Yeah, I've never understood that. You go on a hike and you see somebody else and they're carrying a boombox and they're blasting the music. I mean, like if you really want to listen to something, you can put on a headset, put in your earbuds, whatever. But they want everybody else to hear what they're listening to.
Yeah. It's just I don't get it.
No, I don't get it either. But I definitely can appreciate the wanting to get away and having a sense of freedom, right? The freedom that the ocean brings, the freedom that the hills bring, the freedom that the more difficult places where the average Jill and Joe won't be traveling to will. And if you run into somebody else, hopefully they've gone through that same difficult endeavor to get there, and they might share a similar mindset or respect for it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think I had a thought there that was really good, and it's gone now.
I do that all the time. This is why I got a pen and paper in my notepad. I got to badly jot this stuff down.
I can't write and listen at the same time, though. That's the problem. I'm too male to multitask.
I love it.
Yeah.
So you were involved with anti-poaching.
Yes.
I recently had a fellow reached out to you as well, saying they've got a friend who's looking to get into anti-poaching. You got it.
Yeah.
Tell me about anti-poaching.
Well, my exposure to that was fairly limited. It was right out of high school. So when I was in high school, so I mentioned my mom taught me till grade 7. Grade 8, which over in Zimbabwe is Form 1. They follow the British system of education. So Form 1 through 6 years of high school, they sent me off to boarding school.
Okay.
And basically boot camp with classes. Okay. So very regimented, very structured, very, very formal, Anglican boarding school, very British. And while I was in boarding school on one of the school holidays, I attended a survival camp in a spot on the border with Zambia. The sort of premise was they would teach you bushcraft skills for a week. So we went, there was co-ed course. They had a big sort of sleeping accommodation, just an A-frame, open at the bottom with a concrete pad and a loft. So the girls would sleep upstairs, the guys would sleep down on the concrete pad. And each morning we'd get up, we'd have PT and so physical training. Yep. So we'd wake up at 6, do our PT, and then go on a bushcraft walk. And they would teach us things like making string from bark, or cordage as they call it, or trap building, or tracking, or any other number of bushcraft exercises. And the idea was during that week to teach us the skills we would need to use in a survival situation. And then you would go back at a separate time for a 10-day survival exercise. So they would take us and drop us off in a group, and and you'd have to use those skills that you learned while you were in training. There was no instructor with you when you were on the survival phase. So yeah, it was really, really interesting. You learn a lot about yourself. You learn a lot about your peers. The people that went in there very popular came out not so popular.
Yeah.
And the quieter ones came out really popular. It was just really, really interesting. Once you peel away all the comforts of life and people are put in a survival situation, mentally especially, to see who has the resilience and composure to be able to make it through an exercise like that. So, yeah.
If I'm going to go out on a bit of a limb here, you're probably one of the quiet ones that went in there.
I was, yeah.
There you go.
I was, yeah. I was never one of the popular kids. I was a scrawny little runt and bullied heavily for the first 4 years or so of high school.
What does that look like?
Mostly verbal intimidation. Yeah, people. So, for example, I was in a dorm room for quite a long stretch there were 8 of us in the dorm room. I was the only white kid in there, as I recall. There may have been one other one. And every night after lights out, they would taunt me relentlessly, and without going into too much detail, they'd talk about things that they wanted to do to my mom and my sister, or it was just very sort of chest puffing, a lot of racial tension and resentment that sort of simmered, and I would just lie there and ignore it, and yeah, after a while it takes a toll.
Sure.
Until eventually one day I stood up for myself, and the main antagonist stood up to him, and that was basically the end to the bullying, and moved on from there and became someone that I found myself in a situation where other guys that were struggling with bullying would come to me, and I was able to sort of step in on their behalf, or talk to the bully, or give them advice, that kind of thing. And that was really rewarding for me. So I think it kind of coincided with, like, I had never been involved with group sports, team sports, other than playing soccer with a soccer ball made out of plastic bags all tied together.
That's awesome.
In the dirt with running around trees, like that. That was my team sport exposure until boarding school. And that was when I it was mandatory to fill up your afternoon sort of slots with sports. You had to sign up. So I had exposure to everything from soccer, water polo, squash, to rugby, field hockey, cricket, cross country. We had it was a huge opportunity. We had a mountain biking team. We had a triathlon team. There was a climbing club. There was a snake club, falconry club.
Sounds amazing.
It was pretty awesome. I mean, that's how my parents sold me on it to begin with. They told me about all the things I could try.
Yeah.
And I was really excited. But what I didn't know was how hard it would be to be away from home 3 weeks at a time, and and stuck in a situation where I wasn't just around other missionary kids or African buddies I'd made friends with. I was around all kinds of kids from all different walks of life, and who had nothing in common with me. And I had to learn how to relate to them. That was a challenging exercise. I didn't have a safe place to go to fall back on, or, I just had to figure it out for myself, which was fantastic. But at the time was terrible.
Yeah, I can imagine. I never, it's funny how guys and girls will do it as well. They push and they test each other. But guys, it just seems like a constant poke, poke, poke. Let's see where their limits are, where their boundaries are. And there's a game that's played, and some people can play it very well. And other people, like myself, will just ignore it because I don't want to play that game. And then it comes to a point where you got to do something, and the response is way over the top. It shuts down, and it's like, okay, no, that's not the way to properly deal with these things.
Yeah.
Like, it solved the issue now, but it didn't solve all the poking and then the hurt feelings when they're on the other side.
Yeah, I mean, I was a tender little guy back then. I didn't have a thick skin at all. Very sensitive. I took everything personally. I had a lot to learn. I was a kid, and I think a lot of what I took as attacks was just the term is eluding me now. It was just camaraderie. It was just razzing each other, like, teasing each other because they or teasing me because they liked me,
Right. They care, or they want to like you.
Yeah.
They wanted.
Yeah, and I didn't take it that way. To me, it was an attack. So,
So I've been vocal about the fact that I've got ADHD, or at least I've been diagnosed with ADHD. I'm still scratching my head whether I got it or not. I know I was put on a very large dosage of Ritalin from grade 3, and I took myself off when I went in grade 8, some experimental run. Talked about this before, but one of the things that coincides with ADHD is what do they call rejection sensitivity dysmorphia or dysphoria. Basically, you take everything pretty damn personal, and you think, well, they meant to do that, and there's a sort of a disconnect in the head for the intentions behind why somebody's doing something. And when I look at your background and likes extreme sports and adrenaline junkie and all the rest, I'm like, there's a lot of things here that kind of tick the boxes for what they ended up diagnosing me with.
Yeah, maybe who knows? I mean, growing up, there was no ADHD. There none of the kids I knew had any allergies. There was no dyslexia. There was no none of that. And I don't know if it's just because we all drank food or ate food straight out of the ground or off the farm and drank milk straight out of the cow.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't, we didn't have problems with carcinogens and stuff, or if it's because there was no diagnosis and people did have those things.
It's a good question.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe a bit of both.
I think it's a bit of both. I think people put attention to something, and the more they put that attention to it, they start wearing it. Right, I am my anxiety or my ADHD. Well, no, it's not mine. Right? It's just something that I'll deal with and I'll work with, and I still question whether I have it or not, because there's plenty of times when I don't exhibit any of those symptoms. When I'm out in the wild, when I'm in an environment that matches my personality type, and
yeah, I think a lot of people make the mistake of taking a diagnosis as a life sentence. And they sort of surrender to the fact that, well, I have this and that excuses that behavior, so I don't have to work on it. That really bothers me. People that sort of give in to things like anxiety or depression. I mean, I'm not a psychologist. This is just my opinion based on what I've been through, which we'll probably get to at some point. But, I've been diagnosed with some of those things, and I'm not anymore. So it's not a life sentence. It is something you can work on. You are able to change as an individual. People have the ability to take the reins of their mind and channel their thoughts and control their thoughts instead of being dictated to by them.
But that's not the popular opinion.
No.
The popular opinion is, man, I'm not fitting in with what's going on around me. There must be something wrong with me. And that's, the old analogy of trying to judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, right? It's always going to look bad compared to the monkey, right? But put that monkey in the water and the fish excels, right? I think the popular opinion is people desperately want to fit in, and we see that time and time again. And as much as people say they don't, you look at COVID, right? People talking in hushed tones if they had a contrary opinion because they didn't want to be ostracized by the rest of the group. And
some people, I didn't speak that hushed.
Well, it's funny how social of an animal we are, and they say, "Well, I want to fit in. I'm not studying right, or I'm not retaining information, or I seem like I'm hyperactive, or whatever it might be." Doc, what can we do? And our system says, "Well, I don't know. I think there's a pill for that, right? I think there's something we can give you.
We can give you a label and a prescription.
That's it.
Yeah,
we'll diagnose you. Okay. Well, I personally don't think these diagnoses are really worth a heck of a lot. When you were talking about PTSD earlier, right? You look at cultures and warrior classes that come back and they're lauded as heroes for going to war and protecting the others, and they can live their life proud, and they could have seen the same atrocities and hardships that another society welcomes them back and says, "You guys are baby killers. How could you do it? We shouldn't have gone to war to begin with." And the perspective that individuals have of themselves, I think, greatly influences how their body responds and how their mind responds to it.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. So, I mean, to get back to the anti-poaching piece, that course that I went on, they sort of extended an invite for me to come back after high school and spend some time there with them if I wanted to. So that's what I did, and that's when I had my exposure to the anti-poaching. So they basically were given a huge tract of land by national parks to use for education purposes, and the caveat sort of was that they would be responsible for the anti-poaching exercises in that area. So the course was run by ex-Sulu Scouts, which were, I'm sure you're familiar, but very, very specialized unit. They actually recruited from the SAS and other branches. These guys they make the Navy SEALs look like regular infantry. They were incredible.
They're good at what they do.
Very good at what they did, and a wealth of knowledge to be able to learn from, and awesome guys to be around. Good, solid people. So that was, I went on patrols with them, responded with them to calls and that kind of thing for a period before I made my way over here.
So a friend from South Africa, sitting having some sushi, he gets a text coming in, makes kind of a bit of a face. I'm like, what is it? He's like, you don't want to see it. Okay. Here, I'll show it to you. There's some poachers they caught, right? And shows me a picture, and they got 4 of them on the fence, and they're lined up dead. And just kill them. Yeah. Was that the response that you were?
So it may have varied from place to place. Our sort of modus operandi was you give them an opportunity to surrender, and if they don't, then majority of the time they'd end up dead. Not because it was an inappropriate use of force, but because if they weren't going to surrender, they would try to fight their way out. The majority of the time, it was a case of them running with their AK over their shoulder, firing as they ran. That was sort of, they weren't the most efficient killing teams. They were funded by and large by Chinese interests and would come across the border to hunt for ivory or rhino horn, or in some cases, they were subsistence poachers, so coming over to get animals because there were none in the area they came from. Either way, it was poaching.
Sure.
And the odd occasion they would lie in ambush, and if they knew we were approaching or chasing them. But yeah, that did happen a lot.
So if they surrendered, what was their consequence?
They'd be turned over to the police.
And
I don't know. Honestly, I don't know what happened from there. Probably not a very pleasant experience.
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. You did that for a little while.
Yeah. And then I had a scholarship available to me for university, and the sort of natural landing place for me was BC. My grandparents had retired from Zimbabwe to Abbotsford. So came over here, applied to university first, of course, got accepted, came over here, lived in their unfinished basement, sort of made it my little man cave, and attended university here in BC, and then started putting down roots. There wasn't a whole lot to go back to in Zimbabwe, not the best, most fertile grounds for a young guy starting out his life. There was a lot of not military unrest, but just civil unrest and land repossession and a whole mess going on back home. So this provided more opportunities. I was fortunate enough to have Canadian citizenship through my dad and U.S. citizenship by birth. So it was a good place for me to be.
Yeah, right on the border. You can hop back and forth.
Yeah.
I guess work either side.
I did, yeah. I went down to North Carolina at one point and worked as an animal trainer. And then later on down the road, after all the nonsense I went through, went down to Texas and went to schooling for close protection. So that was, 4 or 5 month course.
So you worked as an animal trainer. Was this like for the movies, or is it for just...
They use the animals in movies and TV commercials.
Okay.
A lot of what they did with them was educational. So the place I worked was a natural science center. So it was kind of like if you combined Vancouver's Zoo, Aquarium, and Science World into one place. They had everything, all kinds of different sections.
That's cool.
And yeah, so my title was the junior curator supervisor. So they had junior curators that were seasonal that would come in and work, basically looking after the animals. And that role extended because of my knowledge and history with animals in Zimbabwe. I didn't have any official qualifications, but my boss saw an opportunity there, and they needed someone to handle the animals for people that were filming and that kind of thing. So that was a role I stepped into.
What kind of animals?
We had a cougar, we had a couple of black bears, a bobcat, and then a bunch of smaller stuff. Like they had raccoons and a sloth and a possum, some monkeys, that kind of thing.
That's pretty neat.
Yeah.
So working with these black bears and the cougar, that would be kind of...
Yeah, it was interesting. They were very tame.
Yeah.
They had been raised by people, so it was an easy sort of role to step into.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Do you hunt in BC?
I have. I don't hunt very much anymore. It's sort of lost its appeal for me. Admittedly, maybe because it's a lot more work here than it was back home.
It is a lot of work, isn't it?
It is a lot of work. It takes a lot of time. It's a large investment.
Yeah.
I have hunted quite a bit in the first sort of 17 years that I was here, and more recently, it's just haven't hunted as much. I've been pretty busy. So
I've almost all of my hunting's been in BC. However, I did recently do a hunt in Molokai, in Texas, and in Sweden, and the way that they hunt and the access to game, it was completely different than over here. I was like, I could be a very good bow hunter in these places. Over here, man, I'm going to be sticking to my rifle for a bit more anyways, because it's harder.
I think if you're a good hunter in BC, you can be a good hunter pretty much anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's interesting to know, especially so. And you, of course, hunting back in Zimbabwe, and you, game everywhere? Or?
Yeah, I mean, so the way the hunting works here is kind of different. As a resident, it's very different to a foreigner going over there and hunting. And you basically bid on what they call a bag, and a bag will have a number of different animals of different species in it that you're allowed to take to harvest, and it'll be for a specific sort of geographical area. Those numbers and species are determined by population counts that national parks do, conservation services do, and so they identify what the ideal population is, the ideal number of males and females, in order to keep that particular species at an optimum level, so that they don't eat themselves out of their environment, or in the case of predators, so that they don't decimate the population of their prey or not control it enough.
Right.
So there's a delicate balance there, and the hunter's role is basically the culling of the animals that are deemed inefficient or not necessary for the optimum levels. So we would typically, it would be 2 or 3 families, my dad and his friends, and their families, that would go to these hunting camps and set up. We had it easy there. There's a lot of sort of manual labor from the farms. Most of my parents' friends were farmers. They had manual labor there. Their chance to go on a hunting trip was like their vacation of the year. They loved it.
Yeah.
And so you'd go out on a hunt. If you were able to harvest an animal, you come back to camp, and you basically back the truck up to the sort of slaughter area, and the guys would take over from there. And and the hunters would retreat to the spot around the pool or around a fire and have a cold snack, and everything else would be sort of taken care of.
I love that.
Yeah.
That spot around the pool. You don't do that in BC.
No.
How about biltong? You make biltong?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
There's a place in Langley where I get my biltong from.
Yeah, Serengeti.
Yeah. How does that compare to what
It's good.
Yeah?
It's good. I mean, it's not game biltong.
Right.
So obviously a bit of a different taste. They only process beef there. I've been on them about that, but they need a special license to process wildlife. I have made some of my own moose biltong and elk biltong over the years. I love elk.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're good. They're authentic.
Okay. That's good to know because I get that stuff.
Yeah, their chili bites are fantastic.
Oh my God, they're addictive, aren't they?
I shouldn't be mentioning it here because just like my secret outdoor spots, now everyone's going to be going there and looking for these things, and they're not going to have any when I go into the shop.
Well, hopefully it keeps them in business and gets them making more because I love those chili bites. I'll just sit there and just slowly chew away while I'm.
They're addictive.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So you got yourself involved with border services for a bit?
I started off in corrections, actually.
Did you?
Yeah, I started off in provincial corrections.
That's kind of a tough job.
It was very negative workspace. Yeah,
hugely.
Yeah, I was fresh out of university and went in there. At the time, the way it was structured, it was very difficult. You started off on what they call a call board.
Okay.
So you were basically a cushion for overtime, and you weren't guaranteed full-time work. You didn't go straight into shift work. They would call you in. Your performance when you applied, when you went through the in-house training, all that kind of stuff, dictated where you were positioned on that call board. And then they would go down in order on the call board. And if people above you skip shifts or decline shifts, then they give you the opportunity. And so to start off with, I started at the beginning of the summer and worked like crazy all summer. I thought, this is great. I bought myself a new car and I was on my way. And then winter came and all the regular staff came back from their vacations and suddenly there was no work for 5 months, 6 months. So I got a job in a copper warehouse to help, cover that sort of dead period. Ended up being promoted to warehouse manager there and got pretty busy. And then corrections started calling me again and I couldn't break away to take the shifts and I had to sort of make a decision. So I opted for the stable income and then a couple years after that, applied to CBSA and made it in there.
So corrections, everyone that I've known that has worked provincial corrections, they talk about how extremely negative the environment is.
Yeah.
Not only just dealing with the cons, but also with your coworkers.
Coworkers were worse.
That's right. That's what I hear.
Yeah, just the attitude.
Yeah.
People are so bitter, especially the people that have been there for a long time. I think they see a lot of really negative stuff. And I mean, it was where I worked was what they call a quote unquote secure facility, what other people around the world would call maximum security, I guess, as maximum as you can get on a provincial level anyway. And yeah, you're basically enclosed in a concrete box for your 12-hour shift. So not a lot of sunlight exposure, not a lot of nature, not a lot of anything positive.
Not a big difference between you and the con in there for that 12-hour shift, is there?
Yeah, no, just different uniform. Basically.
Just different uniform. That's right. Everyone calls you boss.
Yeah, that's right. Or goof.
Or goof. Yeah, don't say goof.
No.
Yeah, I don't know if that translates over to a U.S. prisons, but
I don't know.
Canadian prison, that's pretty much the worst you could call someone is a goof, eh?
As soon as I hear someone on the street using that word, I know they've been in prison.
Right.
They were a convict, yeah.
Yeah. Or they've worked with cons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they picked it up somewhere negative.
Any interesting experience working there?
Not particularly. No, nothing too striking.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
so
I think that was probably where I first learned that you can't judge the capacity of an individual to fight by their physique. The one thing that comes to mind was this little Vietnamese guy. I mean, he was tiny, maybe just over 5 foot, if he was over 5 foot, and pretty scrawny. And it took 5 of us to get him into a seg unit. And yeah, that was interesting as a young guy. Sort of my first exposure to that kind of thing.
Yeah,
it was surprising how strong he was.
Yeah, these wiry ones, I tell you.
Yeah, and I think the mentality has so much to do with the ability to fight.
They say it's not about the size of the dog in the fight, but the size of the fight in the dog.
That's right, yeah.
And there is something to that, but often it's always the little people who say that one too, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, so border services, got on with there, and now you've got a nice bit more respectable job. You're
Yeah.
still in uniform,
Yeah.
and you're
Still had to put in
harassing
sort of
all the poor people at the border.
That's right. Yeah, had to put in the grunt work hours in the
Hmm.
booth, processing travelers. But later on down the road, it sort of branched out a little more, and there was more opportunity to do things like roving and to work on a special enforcement team and that kind of thing. So
That's kind of cool.
yeah.
So what is that? That gets you, and you're confirmed you got someone importing things illegally so you can go to their house, or
No, that would be inland
Okay.
border services. No, it was more sort of. I don't want to say special operations because that has the wrong connotation, but unique operations where they would target specific incidences, or if we had intelligence that a flight of people smugglers was coming in, and they would have the people that had paid them to bring them into Canada flush their passports down the toilet, that kind of thing, and then they come in undocumented and claim refugee status, that kind of thing, or
is it pretty common?
yeah, it's more common than you think, or at least it was back then. We also would do like airside operations where you're out on the apron targeting what quote unquote ramp rats, the baggage handlers
Got it.
that are involved.
The truckers.
That are involved with criminal elements and picking up packages from the cargo holds of the planes, that kind of thing.
Got it. That'd be kind of a fun one to do.
Yeah.
Kind of gets you out. You got to get your detective cap on a little
Yeah,
bit. And
yeah. It's anything that gets you out of that booth, while you're stuck in a bulletproof vest, processing people all day, is good.
Were you guys armed then?
No,
No.
we were armed right as I was leaving, as I was resigning. We were starting to get armed.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how long? You was it about 5 years or so?
No, it was. Let me see, 2000. Yeah, 6 years.
6 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my research is off a little bit.
Yeah,
But,
close.
maybe I was looking at year-old research.
Close, yeah.
And what made you leave that?
So my fiance at the time, actually wife at the time, had a job opportunity on Vancouver Island. She was a radiation therapist, so dealt with cancer patients, and was very difficult to get full-time work in that field. She had an opportunity, and so we decided to uproot and move over to the island. I had always wanted to fly helicopters, so my goal was to go into flight school and bit by bit start working my way to rotary wing license. And 2 weeks after I resigned, all of that was derailed by a motorcycle accident. So, yeah.
Tell me about that. Let's hear that one.
Yeah, I mean, that's basically why I'm here, I think. It was just, I had picked up some part-time work to cover the gap while we were moving. And after work one day, headed out we at the time was living in South Surrey, was heading out to Abbotsford. Went out to Abbotsford, worked on my parents' boat with them, and then went to the movies in Mission with some friends of mine, and was on my way home from the movies. This is June, so still light outside, sort of later in the day, very hot day. All I had on was jeans, flip-flops, a T-shirt, and my helmet. I'm going to catch a lot of heat for that probably. And was heading home, riding down Bradner Road, and a young guy in a Passat with his buddies pulled out of a side street. So you can picture I'm heading south on Bradner. They pull out of a side street to make a left turn in front of me. And when he saw me coming, he slammed on the brakes and panicked, stopped right across the road. And I had nowhere to go. There's deep ditches on either side. I was going a little faster than I should have been. And I slammed into the side of that Passat. The bike, when I locked up the brakes, the bike sort of slid and laid down the bike. The bike went under the back of the car. I hit the side of the car, so the door jamb hit me sort of right behind my right arm. I broke all my ribs. I sort of got wedged under the car a bit, so broke my pelvis in 4 places. They call it a closed book fracture. So your pelvis, which is kind of like a bowl shape, closes in front.
Oh, ouch.
And yeah, broke my back, broke my scapula in half, and I had a bad concussion, had a collapsed lung, one of the ribs punctured and collapsed the lung, severed spleen, lacerated liver, a lot of road rash.
No kidding.
Yeah, was conscious throughout the whole ordeal. And I recall the sort of the coppery taste, the blood in my mouth, and couldn't really breathe very well, I guess because of the collapsed lung. And so I felt like, for whatever reason, I felt like my helmet was restricting my breathing. So pulled my own helmet off, and which I shouldn't have done. Fortunately, it didn't exacerbate any problems, but yeah, it was an experience.
No kidding.
I remember lying there and thinking, so going back to Zimbabwe and the unrest there, Mugabe was the president at the time. And I remember lying there and thinking, as much as I loathe that individual, I wouldn't even wish this pain on him. I remember that thought hitting me. Yeah.
Wow. And the pain, you didn't go into shock. You didn't have the opportunity for the body to kind of numb that pain a little bit?
No, definitely wasn't numbed at all. I don't know about. I'm sure I was in some shock, but I remember the pain. Yeah. And I remember the paramedics arriving, strapping me to a board, and the board they put me on, they had to roll me to the side to get the one side of the board under me, and then roll me back onto it. And then there were 3 straps that sort of secured you to the clamshell. It wasn't a clamshell; it was a board at the time. Now they have clamshells, which would have been better. And the strap that they put over my midsection, when he sort of put it through and cinched it up, it closed my pelvis because everything was broken. And I wish I could have punched that guy, but I didn't have the ability at the time. But yeah, not pleasant. And then they took me to Abbotsford Hospital. And when they realized the extent of the injuries, transferred me to Royal Columbian.
So how long was the recovery on that one?
The physical recovery is one thing. The emotional, psychological recovery is a different story. Physical recovery, I'd say probably a year and a half, 2 years to be at the point where I was walking again. There was a lot that went into that, into physio, into pushing myself. I started physio earlier than I was supposed to. I just wanted to get out of the bed. Was chomping at the bit, and I had to transfer myself from the bed to the wheelchair with my arms across a board, and started with the wheelchair, just getting out of the bed, and then slowly started weight bearing. Little by little, and the body's ability to heal is remarkable. I had to go through two or three surgeries. I have a bunch of titanium hardware in my pelvis now, and some other places, and it was but it was a tangible challenge. It was something tangible. The pain was tangible. I could feel it. It was something that I could feel, I could identify, to work through. The psychological and emotional impact was not tangible. It wasn't something that I could, quantify and find the parameters of and work toward moving past. I didn't understand the full impact that the accident had. I did go to a psychologist and was diagnosed with major depressive disorder and PTSD and severe anxiety post-accident. So that was interesting.
Did you feel you had any of that pre-accident?
No.
Okay.
No, definitely not. No, I had never had any symptoms of any of those things pre-accident.
So major depressive disorder, anxiety,
PTSD. Yeah.
What is MDD look like?
It's hard to put a finger on that. I mean, it was just the best way I can describe it is sort of like a heavy gray rain cloud around you all the time. Like no matter what you were going through, it just nothing was pleasant. Nothing was the same. Nothing was fun. Like it was just it's a constant state of depression. It's like It's like when you're in the height of winter here in January, and you're waiting for summer and it never comes.
It's gray.
It's like
rain.
just a perennial January, just all year long. It's just January. And you can never, nothing you do sort of blows the clouds away. It's just, you're just stuck in a rut of cold wetness and an emotional sense.
Well, what was your support network like?
As I mentioned, I was married at the time.
Right.
She was great. She was a great woman, not the right person for me by any means, but a great individual. And she was really my only real support. I had a handful of friends that stuck by me through that. The groups that I had been involved with leading up to that point, a lot of them sort of disappeared into the woodwork. I don't know if that's because I wasn't as fun to be around. I don't know if it's because they didn't really know how to offer support. I don't know what the reason is, but they just sort of vanished. And that, the 2 years after the accident sort of culminated in a divorce, ultimately amicable, but difficult nonetheless. And I think it just sort of exposed the cracks in the relationship that were already there. It was a catalyst, made things break down faster. And I ended up in a little basement suite with both vehicles off the road. I couldn't afford to insure them, was stuck on disability, which paid peanuts, basically covered my rent. And that was about it. My parents had gone back to Zimbabwe. They were only here for a short period and then had gone back. So for the majority of that recovery time, the 5 years or so after the accident, I didn't really have much of a support network. But the ones that were supportive really stepped up and stood out.
It's interesting how things can happen in our life that act as a bit of a light that'll shine on, and you find these groups and people who you thought were friends who just disappear. Okay, fair enough. See ya.
Yeah.
And sometimes you find that there's people that come out of the woodwork that you'd never expect, or people that you would expect to kind of be there, but they step up in ways that you'd never expect.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So tell me about what it was like with these people that were there for you.
Yeah, I mean, communication was a big one, just people reaching out and sort of checking in. There were some people that stepped up and offered help financially or in terms of resources, just food, that kind of thing, which was, I never asked for it, but it was more appreciated than I think they'll ever really know. And it was a struggle. There were times where I existed on a bowl of Cheerios with water every day, or would snack on dry cereal, that kind of thing. I just couldn't afford anything else. And I'm sure in hindsight, I'm sure there were probably resources available to me, like government funded or food banks, that kind of thing. But I didn't know at the time. And it was, I come from a background where you just take care of it. You don't rely on other people. You're not entitled to anything. You're on your own. No one's coming. You have to figure out a plan. So I didn't look into that or lean into it as I probably should have. Yeah, I mean, it ultimately, one of those individuals, I reached my rock bottom. I felt like those clouds had sort of closed in like curtains all around me. I couldn't see past the immediate and was just completely hopeless, and done, fed up with everything. And there were a sequence of events that were really heavy and placed a burden on me that I had no capacity to be able to deal with financially. And I only saw one way out. And yeah, it was in that context, right, literally at the last moment, that I heard a knock on my door and ignored it, and heard a knock on my window and ignored that too. and then heard a knock on my sliding door at my patio and thought, who is making this much of an effort? So put down what I was doing that I shouldn't have been doing, and went to...
You'd made a decision you're going to take your life.
Yes, yeah. Wasn't sure if you wanted me to
no, that's fine.
Come right out and say that, but...
I think there's a lot of value. The reason why I want to talk about this is because I don't think, while your situation is unique to you, I don't think the feelings that you have or what you go through is going to be a unique situation. And I think there's a lot of people out there that could be feeling similar things or going through some similar things. And if we can extract from your experience the rays of light, the places that help the most, the lessons that we learn, I think there's a lot of value to your story to others.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I'm here, really. That if the only thing I get out of this whole experience is being able to give someone else out there a bit of a different perspective and a bit of hope, hopeful perspective, then it's rewarding for me. That's yeah.
So you're in a situation where you felt there was no hope.
Right.
You felt there was no other way out. The financial burdens were so great. The mindset was as such that, okay, well, this is my time to check out.
Yeah, I mean, my identity was wrapped up in my abilities, in my physique, in my it was very materialistic. It was not in terms of belongings, but just aesthetics. My marriage, and all of those things have been ripped away from me.
And you were involved with the church as well?
Yes.
Are you still involved?
No. I have a very strong faith, but I've become very disenfranchised with the established church. There was a point where when I came back from Texas from the close protection course I was on, I saw my ex there with her mom. I gave them both a big hug. We chatted for a bit. I sat with them through the service. And when I was leaving, my ex-wife was in position at the front door to greet people arriving for the next service. So I saw her. She came out, sort of chased me down in the parking lot to give me a hug goodbye, and got emotional. When she walked back up, the pastor saw her like that. And I wasn't privy to any of that conversation, but essentially from what she told me at the time, he asked her if it made it difficult for her to see me there. She said, yeah, it was emotional. So that precipitated him reaching out to me, asking to get together. I met with him at a restaurant where he showed up with an elder from the church and asked me not to come back. And years later, he reached out again and apologized and asked to meet with me. So I met with him. I had a young East Indian guy that was a co-worker that had become a Christian, was interested in going to church. I really wanted him to be able to plug in there because the doctrine was really sound. And the teaching was good. He had a way of connecting with people that didn't grow up in the church. And so I was eager to be able to plug him in, but he didn't want to go without me. He wanted me to come with him. So that was, I met with the pastor at this coffee shop. We had a great talk. He apologized profusely. And then he said, when I was saying goodbye to him, he said, I'll speak to so-and-so, my ex, and just check with her that she's okay with it. And so, yeah, a couple weeks later, I got a message from him to say, yeah, she's not okay with it. So don't come. So that was it. That was the nail in the coffin for me.
Did you have, prior to that, was that a social network for you?
Absolutely, yeah. The majority of my close friends were from the church group. They were church people. We hosted a Bible study in our home. I was very connected. I was involved with that church right from when it was a church plant, and it blew up. It became huge, and we were very involved. We did security, at the church. And my buddies, my group was the church group, and that's what struck me was they were the ones that sort of vanished. The majority of them just vanished because I no longer fit inside that cookie cutter Christianese sort of image. I had gone through a divorce. I was dealing with depression. Things were real.
Yeah, that's when you need that support the most.
Exactly. And
right?
and I know that like what Christians are supposed to be is inclusive, reaching out to people in positions of need, reaching out like Jesus' passion was for the lost sheep.
Sure.
It wasn't for the ones in the in the herd. It was for the lost sheep. Like he, even when he was walking the planet, it was the sick and dying. It was the prostitutes. It was the the people that needed him the most that he reached out to. So the fact that the established church, by and large, is known to the secular world for judgmental attitudes, self-righteousness, exclusivity, things that are not at all what the church is supposed to be about, just kind of left a bad taste in my mouth. And yes, there's a lot of good to it. I don't discredit that, but it's the church is people. The church is not a building.
It's a human institution.
And people are flawed by nature. So you can't expect a perfect portrayal of Christianity through the people. Like they're all broken too in their own ways.
Yes.
So yeah, my faith is so strong. I believe in what I believe in, but my church is the outdoors. My church is being around people that are authentic and just having real conversations and real in-depth discussion about spirituality. Yeah.
It's funny, Bear Grylls, so he's open about his faith. He says something very similar to that. He says, my church isn't inside a chapel with all these other people. It's when I sit down around the table with my family and my kids. It's when I'm outside and we're engaging with each other. And he says, well, maybe I'll read a little bit of scripture and before dinner or whatever it might be, but that's church.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be pious on Sunday, getting dressed up, doing the whole act, and then going back to whatever it is you're doing.
Yeah, there's. I mean, I grew up around that. I grew up. We would go to the States for a year at a time. We made 2 trips over during my first 20 years of life, I believe. And you go to all kinds of churches, churches that supported my parents, that they went to give feedback to, and they'd put on a slideshow and they'd have a table with curios on it, and they'd talk to them about the work they were doing and the impact they were having. And I mean, the people spoke Christianese, like the hey, how are you? Welcome here. And I mean, it was just it just smacked of
Howdy do, neighbor.
Yeah, and their interests seemed feigned. Not all of them. Again, there are always exceptions to the rule, and the exceptions to the rule were people I really appreciated. There were authentic people there, but I grew up around that sort of false persona, people who are acting a certain way one day of the week.
So you're sitting there in your basement. You don't have the social network anymore. Heavy financial burdens.
Yeah.
You're not reaching out to anybody.
No.
Some people are reaching out to you?
Yes.
Okay. And you've got a shotgun.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you've got a friend knocking on the door.
Yeah. Yeah, so I put the shotgun down. I went to the door and I had these wooden louvers on the window of the door, and I lifted one to peep through, and he saw me. So I couldn't walk away from that. I knew he'd seen me. I had already written a letter to my parents and a letter to my sister, leading up to pulling out the shotgun and that kind of thing. And as soon as I opened the door and he saw me, he's a 6'5", 6'6", big German guy, and he knew somehow. He knew something was up. And he gave me this big bear hug, lifted me right off the ground. And I mean, I'm not small.
No, you're not.
So yeah, that he refused to leave my side. It just happened that morning. His wife was involved with firearms instruction at the Chilliwack Center for the CBSA. Her car wouldn't start that morning, so he had driven her to work, and on the way home stopped in Abbotsford, where I was at the time, just to say hi, and knew I was home, knew I should have been home, and just hadn't given up for whatever reason. I believe personally that there was definitely some divine intervention going on there. I mean, the number of coincidences that had to line up for that to happen, I don't believe one coincidence most of the time, let alone a handful like that. So, Yeah, he stayed with me. Back in those days, it was hanging out and playing Call of Duty together. We went out to a pub and had a couple drinks and went home. He crashed on my couch and wouldn't leave until I promised I wasn't going to do anything stupid. And yeah, he's been like, he's one of those friends that is loyal to the core, that has been by my side since he met me, and one of my good hunting buddies. A lot of the hunting I've done has been with him. Just an awesome guy. He's a pilot now. And yeah, he saved my life. And the journey from there on was, it was a slow sort of pulling back on the yoke and pulling out of a nosedive. It was slow to begin with and got incrementally faster. The more, go ahead.
What did that look like?
I realized I needed to make a shift. I think the fog cleared enough that I realized how selfish of a decision I had been considering, and how hurtful that would have been to people in my life that I cared about. And I didn't want to end up there again. So I started, I guess I wanted to change things. I wanted different circumstances. And I gained a bit of a motivation to find what that was going to look like for me. And again, I believe by divine intervention, those pieces fell into place for me. I started to receive tools to add to my toolbox that I could use in that process. And one of those resources was an uncle of mine who had also been involved in the Rhodesian Bush War, had moved from South Africa to Australia. Very successful guy, very successful in business. I'd always had a really strong relationship with him, one of my mom's brothers. And he reached out to me. I don't know if it was because my parents asked him to. I don't know. But he reached out to me, and I trusted him enough that I was willing to listen to what he had to say. One of the most incredible guys I've ever known. And yeah, he started mentoring me from Australia via WhatsApp. He would send me video clips and challenge me to memorize them, or would quiz me on them later. And
Video clips of what?
so one of the most standoutish ones was a commencement speech given by Admiral William McRaven, who was the commander of JSOC in the States, and he was giving a commencement speech to the graduates from the University of Texas, and I guess the sort of framework of that speech had to do with his experience of Hell Week and training for the Navy SEALs and the challenges that he had gone through there, and he broke them down into point form, basically. And so, yeah, it had to do with me. I listened to that. It's about half an hour long, and I listened to it probably 50 times and pulled something new out of it every time. And just incredibly motivational speech. And a huge part of that, a huge component that sort of was an overlying theme throughout the whole speech was the importance of having an impact. And it struck me that, how good of a hunter you are. I, like 1998, I was given a trophy for Zimbabwe Hunter of the Year, Junior Hunter of the Year. And there were accolades like that through my life that I'd sort of earned and treasured, and they formed part of my identity. And there were achievements, the experiences I had, and it struck me, all those things, when you leave, are gone, and no one cares about them, and no one's going to remember them. So if I want to leave a legacy, and I don't have billions of dollars to leave to family members, like, what kind of impact can I have on the people that are following? What kind of legacy can I start to build? Because that's something that will give me purpose. And so that's why I'm here. is to have an impact. If I can impact one person, and that one person can take that, whatever it was from this conversation that impacted them, and carry it on down the road and impact another person, that becomes an exponential positive impact. And that affects change over time. And several of the key points throughout that speech have also stuck with me through over the years. I mean, it's been 15 years now since the accident, and those themes, those points still carry weight. They still impact my day-to-day life. Things like, for example, he talks about doing an infiltration into a harbor at night under cover of darkness. They're dropped off about 1 kilometer offshore. They swim into the harbor with rebreathers underwater. Even at that time, underwater at night, with rebreathers, there is ambient light, starlight, moonlight. As you get into the harbor lights. But then he describes how their mission was to place charges on the hull of a boat, of a ship, and they go under the keel of the ship, and all of a sudden, all of the ambient light is gone, and it's absolute pitch black, and your ability to fall back on the training you've had, on your confidence, on your competence, and not panic when you can't see your hand in front of your face, and achieve the task is paramount. And who you are as a Navy SEAL, how you perform in that moment is all that counts. And so the sort of parallel to that in my life was, you're only as good as you are in your darkest hour. You're only as good of a person as you are when the proverbial hits the fan. When you everything is stripped away from you, when you don't have hope, you don't have sunshine, you don't have positivity, that's when it matters who you are. That's when you have an opportunity to show the world and the people around you what you're made of. And that's what stays with people. Who you are when, you're in a Jeep with the top down, cruising along a river in BC's backwoods, and you've got, some drinks you're going to have at the beach, and maybe a Colt that you're going to smoke around a fire, or like when things are good, when you're happy, when you've got a brand new relationship and you're excited, and that who you are then doesn't matter. What matters is, can you be consistent? Can you be that kind of a positive person, that kind of a solid individual when your circumstances are shit? Can you pull it together? So that's something that really stuck with me, that I took as a personal challenge. And I mean, there's a biblical theme there too. Like the Bible talks about being content in any circumstance. So it was a challenge spiritually for me as well.
Yes. Few things there come to mind. I'm reminded of the kids' book where these animals are lost in the forest, and one of them's given up. I just can't see my way through, and says, "Well, can you see the edge of the forest over there?" No. Well, can you see your feet? Yes. Can you see your next step? Yes. Well, let's just take that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And you talk about purpose, how massive purpose is for people to be happy. I made a list of things for Mental Health Month coming up and I had AI rank my list that I made of what's going to give people the most impact. And so I'll probably record some videos of that when that comes up. But purpose is one of the things I have in there, and it's huge. Harvard did a study. What's the number one predicator of happiness and contentment in people's lives across? It was an 80-year study across all different walks of life, all different ethnicities and backgrounds and beliefs, and it's strong social connections. You said it, how selfish the decision that you were about to make was. You look back on that as being selfish. And one of the things that I have talked to other people about, and I thought, well, that's a really interesting thing that can help give purpose. They say taking your own life doesn't solve the pain. It just transfers it. Viktor Frankl had a older man come in, father of modern logotherapy, man's search for meaning, talks about purpose and the rest. And man says, my wife died. I just can't carry on living. I'm so filled with grief. He says, well, how would your wife feel if you died first? So she'd be beside herself. It'd be terrible. I don't know how she'd go on. He says, well, would you want her to carry on her life and be miserable? And, well, no, right? And he says, well, you spared your wife that grief by outliving her. You have purpose. Mm-hmm. That is your purpose, is to bear that hardship and bear it in a way, like you say, in your darkest hours. That's what matters. Man leaves. Okay, makes sense. I'm good to go. And that little reframe of where that purpose is for people who are thinking of giving up because they don't have the money, because it'll be easier on other people, because whatever it might be. It doesn't work that way. And it's generational. You have kids, you have family members. It's one of these things that has been proven. It's an option for you. It's an option for me. Do you want that for other people? And if not, there's purpose.
Yeah.
I like that. And how will you be remembered? That's something that I've used with people as well in different circumstances. It's something I use with myself, right? It's, holy crap, things are getting really bad. How do I want to be remembered? Well, not like how I'm feeling right now, that's for sure. Yeah. I used it with my wife when she was giving birth with our first child. And I said, well, she'd always talk about her grandmother, what a tough woman she was. I said, tomorrow's going to come. All of this pain will have subsided. And you're going to be able to look back on how you acted over the next 27 hours or whatever she was in labor for. Like maybe this isn't the right thing. It was the right thing for her, she says.
Yeah.
I'm not suggesting other people say this to their wives. But how do you want to be remembered? How do you want your kids and grandkids to remember how you dealt with this difficulty?
Yeah.
And she says that reframe changed everything.
Yeah, I mean, for me too, there's this just popped into my head, but I grew up playing Salute Scout and SAS with my buddies. My dad would cut us basically like the outline of an assault rifle, and and he'd screw a door bolt onto the side, so it was bolt action. And we grew up with those toys. We didn't have toy guns you could buy really, but that was. I wanted to be part of what my uncles and my dad had been part of, but by the time I was of military age, there was nothing happening. There was the armed forces in Zimbabwe were all black at that stage. Like there was no prospect. I came over here. I had an obligation to the scholarship. There was an expectation there that I go to university, and out of university I needed to be making a living. I couldn't take a break. I had grandparents here. I was the only one here for a while, so it's sticking around to sort of be there for them. I missed the boat on joining the armed forces as a regular member, and I often think I would have loved to have gone JTF2 or SEALs or search and rescue with Canadian forces, and all of my hobbies, align with that, like scuba diving, rappelling, parachuting, all that kind of stuff is stuff I love to do. So the thought of being paid to do it. Anyway, there's this sort of overlying theme where I've had this sort of imposter syndrome a lot of the time. Like I don't feel like I belong among the likes of Seb and some of the other guys you've had on your podcast. Because there's a pedigree there. And I haven't really, some anti-poaching, some law enforcement, but I wasn't an actual cop. I wasn't a police officer. I wasn't ERT. So there's this. For a long time, I felt like I missed the boat, and it struck me when I was pulling out of that nosedive, like this is my opportunity to show that I'm made of the same stuff.
100%.
This is my chance to show that. I have the grit to make it through no matter what life throws at me, no matter what's stripped away from me. I'm in a place now where I'm very fortunate. I'm blessed. I've got a beautiful home. I don't own it. I rent it. But I have a beautiful living place. We have a boat. I have a bike. I have a car or a truck. I have a lot going for me, but I am not disillusioned at all. I'm very well aware that next week all of that could be gone. The relationships that I hold dear could be gone. None of the stuff that I have around me is permanent. It will all at some point fade away, and I'm okay with that. And that the experience that I went through is what enabled me to reach that stage where my happiness, my contentment, my authenticity is not contingent upon any relationship or material belonging. That's the most valuable, one of the most valuable lessons that I came out of that with.
And that's a hard-earned lesson. And that's a difficult one to share with other people if they haven't earned it in the same way. Some people are smart, right? Some people can listen, look at what you've done, pick it up, and learn and grow from that. I've always been one of those ones who has to touch the stove to learn that it's hot. Oh, that's what you meant by hot. Like hot. What do you mean? Like hot? Like how hot, right?
Yeah.
Can I do it real quick? But there's, you talk about, it wasn't ERT or it wasn't, like if you're a city cop, well, but you're not Clue or Oka or ERT or, if you're ERT, well, you're not SEAL or Delta Force, JTF2 or SAS, right?
Yeah.
If you're SAS, like there's always levels to these things. I'm reminded like Dean Nugent. He was out climbing with Jace Budd and Jace, high-level mountaineer, well-accredited, ex-British Army. Actually did SCS selection a couple of times. And Dean, he's just kind of getting into it. Girl comes up, says, "Oh, you're a climber." He says, "Oh, no, I'm not a climber. Jace over here, he's the climber." And she's like, "Well, I don't know. You got a harness and a helmet on. You're attached to a rope. I'm not. You look like a climber to me." Right? It's like, I guess I am a climber. Right?
Yeah.
There's always going to be levels to these things.
And we're our own toughest critics.
Yeah.
Like, no one looks at us with as much criticism as we do.
And no one cares.
Yeah.
Really? And the things that we do bad, we're so embarrassed about, or whatever it might be. It's not even other people's radar for the most part. And if it's on their radar, it's shortly on their radar. And the important people, they don't care, right? The people who would pick at it and poke holes and point fingers, it's like they say, nobody ever craps on the people behind them, right? Sorry, nobody ever craps on the people ahead of them. that makes a little bit more sense. Do I have that one right? No.
People are trying to tear down the people ahead of them.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
The people ahead of you, they want to see you succeed, right? And so
the people behind them, they want to see succeed because they're already there.
Right.
The people ahead of them, they want to be where they are, so they don't like that they're succeeding. I think maybe
you made that a lot more eloquent than I. But and that's something always to keep in mind. Why is this person trying to tear me down? Well, it's not because they're ahead of me. It's not because they're better than me in any single way. It's because they're unable to even be where I'm at.
Yeah.
And the only way that they can see themselves as being successful is by tearing down the others around them.
Yeah, those who've achieved what they want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that judgment that you get from other people, maybe that's another thing that people can keep in the back of their head, because we are social creatures and judgment means something. And you weren't reaching out for help. Why? Because you're concerned about how you might look or people judging you. Why wouldn't you reach out?
There wasn't really a cognitive exercise attached to that. So all I can do really is hypothesize. There must have been some sort of subconscious. I'm sure it had something to do with the fact that, number one, I didn't have the network around me that I felt I could confide in to that extent. Like I said, my parents were out of country for the majority of that stretch. When it was the worst, my sister was far away, and they all had lives and problems of their own. I didn't want to be a burden.
Right, and I think that's it there.
And a lot of the time, I see people reaching out on social media for handouts, I'm in some groups, some community groups, and it amazes me the number of times people will reach out with no shame at all, and it's repeated, and it does not feel authentic to me, and I didn't want to be one of those people. I didn't want to expect that because I had made bad decisions, someone else was going to step up and help me. There was a lot, and I came to the point where I realized that where I was ultimately, when you boil it down enough, was solely a consequence of my own decisions, my own actions. The kid that ran the stop sign, it wasn't his fault. My ex-wife, nothing was her fault. Like nothing was anyone else's fault but my own. But it was a tough pill to swallow, but it was empowering at the same time.
You need that.
Because I realized the flip side of that coin was if I'm going to end up where I want to be in life with the set of circumstances that I desire for myself, that's also only going to be my fault. It's only going to be a result of my decisions, my actions. It's not going to be a result of handouts. It's not going to be a result of other people's decisions. I fully have the potential within myself to place myself where I want to be, because I fully had the potential within myself to place myself at rock bottom.
I think when you talk about the flip side, on that flip side as well is, if it's not your fault why these things happened, that means you don't have any control over why these things are happening to you. And if you don't have any control and everything you're looking at is like, oh, now I'm in an accident, now the friend group's leaving.
You're a victim.
You're the victim. And the faster people can get themselves out of this victim mentality, the faster they're able to start getting themselves on track to healing.
Yeah, 100%.
There's a doctor, and he says patients will come in, they'll say that they're at the end, they're going to take their life. And he says, I don't try and tell them, no, here's what you got to live for. Here's what he says. I say, that might be a good idea, but now's not the time to make that decision. You're probably not thinking clearly in this moment. How about you write it down and we'll just take a look at this in a month or so, and we'll come back and if after a few more visits we're looking at this, it still seems like the way to go, well, maybe it is the idea, but have a sober second thought and you look at this. He said he hasn't lost anybody by doing that. It gives them control and power, and it's not like it's all being taken from them.
Yeah, it gives them agency.
You had some letters that you wrote to your family. Did you hold on to them?
I had sent the one to my parents. I don't think I had sent the one to my sister. But either way, they're history now.
Oh, you emailed them?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it was Facebook Messenger or something like that.
With a sober second thought, looking back at them, does it look ridiculous?
No, I wouldn't call it ridiculous. Irrational.
Okay.
Maybe. It wasn't a cry for help. It was an expression of gratitude, an apology in advance, I guess. Yeah, it wasn't ridiculous because it was relevant at the time. It was heartfelt, and it wasn't a cry for help. It was authentic. The decision, again, selfish because it was only me I was thinking of. Like that decision would have been to alleviate my own pain and situation, but like you said, it would have transferred it to someone else. So, by definition, a selfish decision. I mean, I think you can ask pretty much anyone what they felt when they were selfless, like what sort of feelings they had when they did something selfless. They can recall a selfless experience, something they did to help someone else without any benefit to themselves. In my experience, that's always a gratifying feeling. It's always gratifying to sacrifice for someone else, to do something for someone else, is a rewarding thing. So yeah,
I agree. I think that mentality of everyone likes to use it. Well, I gotta take care of me first, right? It's just like that airplane. Airbags come out. Got to get your own airbag on. Take care of yourself so you can take care of others, right? Well, I think people take that analogy too far, and sometimes there's a lot of value in helping somebody else. And this isn't an airbag analogy. I'm not just taking care of me first. If I can help take care of you, I all of a sudden start feeling, oh, geez, we both got something out of that one, right?
Well, you have purpose.
Right.
Right. And again, I lost it was I promise all the viewers, it would have been an epiphany. It was a fantastic thought that I just had that just flew out of my head. Hopefully it'll come back to me. But
so I should watch my words when I say, when you look back on the letter, was it ridiculous? And I guess I should have left that open-ended and asked what your thoughts were when you look back on that. I don't for one second think it would be ridiculous, but I would think that looking back with a sober second thought this time, you'd say, what was I thinking?
Yeah, I took that to mean you were asking if I regretted it.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't regret that exercise. What I regret was the selfishness.
You were...
you were talking about how people take it too far to look after yourself first. The thought that I had on that was this whole movement, like you see it all over the place, especially like single women on social media talking about self-love.
I see that a lot, yes.
It's like this movement, self-love. If something isn't benefiting me, I'm cutting it out of my life. Where's your purpose? Yeah. Like what? If your only purpose is looking after yourself, that's not purpose. Like our purpose is in community. Our purpose is in supporting people that need it. I think a lot of it is just terminology. It's verbiage. Self-love is a good thing. Self-centeredness is not. And sometimes self-centeredness is labeled as self-love, and so people embrace it. Just like a lot of other things in society these days, that people place rainbows and daisies, sunshine and butterflies label on something, suddenly it becomes acceptable. But it doesn't change the reality of what that thing is. And it's the same with self-centeredness. Like there's a fine line. It's important to look after yourself, but it's just as important to look after other people and be available and step up because it's fulfilling. Like it gives you, it's rewarding. It is self-love to help other people.
I think that's a very good distinction. You were put on medication, and you took yourself off that medication cold turkey. How long were you on it for?
About 4 years.
And that'd be for the major depressive, so probably SSRI or an SSRI?
Anxiety, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there were two or three meds on pretty heavy doses, and I took everything I had and flushed it down the toilet.
When? Right immediately following?
No, it was sometime after.
Okay.
Yeah, it was part of the process for me. I had moved at that stage, so I know it was a while later. Okay. And yeah, I just flushed all of it, and I would not recommend that. I would recommend that you sort of talk to your doctor, wean yourself off of it, like do it the right way. But for me, that was what I did. I just flushed it, and I was like, no, I'm dealing with this myself. I've got the agency. I've got the reins of my mind. I'm not going to allow my thoughts to dictate to me. I'm not going to allow medication to alter my personality and my frame of mind. I got this. So, and I did, for a week or so, I had little electric jolts going up my spine and other withdrawal symptoms, but it was a smart choice for me. Okay. Because it was me. I'm the one that handled the struggles I was having, not the medication. I didn't want a crutch. I wanted to face it head on. And yeah, I mean, like we talked about before, a lot of people take well, not prognosis, but diagnosis as a life sentence.
Yeah, and they wear it.
They surrender themselves to that. This is my reality. I have anxiety. I have depression. I have PTSD. I have whatever.
Ah.
You don't have to keep it.
You're feeling it, sure.
Yeah, you're feeling it. It's to help you identify what it is you're going through.
Right.
But you don't have to carry that your whole life. I'm a firm believer. I'm sure there are experts out there that'll disagree. I'm a firm believer that everyone has the ability to take the reins of their thoughts, to not allow their thoughts to dictate to them, to start filtering out the negative and shift their mindset.
Mm-hmm. I said something similar. I was asked to give a talk for a university in California by a doctor for his class. And I gave a talk, and the doctor pointed out a few things that I said, okay, maybe not everybody, right? There's always going to be people who come from or severely disabled who won't be able to control certain things in the same way that perhaps I'm relaying. Fair enough. The medication thing was another interesting one. I think that medication can be an important tool for somebody who's in crisis, for a quick stopgap. And unfortunately, it isn't, I don't see it always used that way. Medication is supposed to be something that's used in conjunction with a lifestyle change, finding purpose, exercise, diet, all of these other things that kind of go along with it. And then you wean off and go forward. I look at our medical system. I was giving my doctor hell a while ago. I was like, why don't you just, like, my knee, what the hell's wrong? Send me in for imaging. Let's figure out what's going on here. And like, I don't want to take medication. I don't want these different pills for the pain. Let's just figure out what the pain is and let's address it, right?
Yeah.
He says, well, that's not how we're taught. I'm like, what do you mean? He says, well, we're taught to address a symptom. If there's no more symptom, then the problem's solved. I said, so does that mean like I got to take these anti-inflams for my knee for the rest of my life so that they get rid of that symptom? And well, yeah. I said, that's not an approach that makes sense to me, right? Yeah. And I think that same approach is being used often with mental health problems. Oh, it's not showing the symptom. And after a while, the body adapts to the medication and then they're prescribing a higher dosage or a different type so that they can look at these symptoms. And the meds will have their own symptoms that go along with that.
And then they subscribe things to deal with those symptoms.
Yeah. And it's a bit of an endless cycle. I think people have way more personal agency than they're led to believe. I think there's a reason why there's a learned helplessness within society. And I think the more people that can adopt an ownership mindset, like what you're talking about, and realize the level of control that they have, even over small things in their life, which will grow into bigger, the more they realize maybe they don't really have problems. Maybe their environment needs to change. Maybe what they have is actually a gift, right? Or just a different way of looking at it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is there anything that we haven't talked about that we should be talking about?
Probably a lot.
I think there is.
I'm sure I'll think back and, think, I wish I'd told this story about the lion or the elephant or the whatever. And
you have a story about a lion and an elephant?
I've got tons of stories. I'm sure there are lots of things that'll come to mind, but you can't cover everything. So
it was funny. The elephant one, I remember years ago, I think it was in my early 20s, and I saw this, there's a company, a buddy says, oh, you got to check this one out. They'll teach you how to be a businessman without having to go through business school. And so you're going through these different exercises, and some of them are like, what do you want to do? I'm like, I kind of want to ride an elephant. I think that'd be cool. So I'm writing this stuff down, right? And anyways, I got filed away, I don't know where. Years later, someone's asking in a more official capacity, well, do you have any business plans? I'm like, well, not really. Like, any work you've done? Well, I got this stuff. And he's looking through this. I want to ride an elephant. He's like, Travis, this isn't business. It's like, all right, fine. Yeah. And you do a lot of work trying to help people who are victims of abuse.
Yeah, I mean, that True Haven is still, relatively speaking, in its infancy, but it's a fantastic cause. It's something that I'm very passionate about. I think, it's a multiplicity of contributing factors that sort of made me that way. my dad's like he's just a solid man. He raised me with a respect for women and respect for wildlife and animals. And my experience in boarding school, being bullied, seeing other people sort of victimized, growing up in Africa, some of the stuff you see there, the abuse some people go through, and the hardship, and I guess having had somewhat of a unique perspective and view into humanity and the common themes that carry across different races and creeds and cultures, and the fact that people hurt no matter what color they are.
Sure.
There's a level of compassion there, and for women, for animals, for other people, for people in difficult circumstances, and being able to use my skill set that I've, partly I was born with, part natural ability, part training. Like there's a lot of training that I've gone through over the years for different jobs, different positions I've filled, that I'm able to bring to bear, and the ability to remain composed in the face of someone that's red and angry and screaming and thinks they can take anyone. Being able to bring that to a circumstance, a situation where someone's in fear for their life, or the fear for their kids' lives, and sort of, it's almost like by osmosis, you convey some of that confidence and calmness to people that are going through crisis and being threatened by someone who's really just a big coward. That's really rewarding for me. So, yeah, being able to mentor, same thing. Being able to mentor people that are facing adversity, that are in their darkest hour, that don't know where to turn, don't know who to trust to be authentic with and expose their, the things they're not the most proud of about their lives. I may not have a lot to bring to bear in terms of financial resources and that kind of thing, but I do have experiences. I do have an idea of what a shifting your paradigm, shifting your mindset can do, and I love to be able to impart that with other people. And in the process, it builds relationship, builds the kind of relationships that show up at your door and knock on your window and when you need it the most. So, and it gives me purpose. So, yeah, I love being able to be involved with those kinds of causes.
Well, Heath, I'm going to put links in the description to your social media so people can find a way to contact you if they wanted to, and as well as to True Haven so they can see those resources. Thank you very much for sharing your story on the Silvercore Podcast, and I really appreciate you coming here to do that. I really enjoyed the conversation.
I did too. Thank you very much, Travis. It's an honor.